I'm excited to welcome onto the podcast my good friend, Ronsley Vaz. Ronsley, thanks so much for joining us today.
This is so cool. I mean, I've known of the show for so long, and it's really funny. First time facilitator, the word facilitator. I just had a friend go through my characteristics, and one of the things she brought up was the word facilitator. And then the next day, you sent me a message saying, would you like to be on my show? And it was extremely weird. So it's good to be here.
That was actually something I was going to ask you, but first let's just put a pin on that, because you have uncanny timing with your connections and the way that life pans out for you. And well, I'm sure that'll be evident as this conversation unfolds and you share some cool stories. But I was going to ask you, would you define yourself, I mean, you're a podcaster, you're an author, you own a company. Would you define yourself as a facilitator? Would you add that label?
No, not really. This was the first time I heard the word facilitator. It referred to me as a facilitator type person. And I think it probably came from me saying to her, because I'm going through some sort of transition right now, right? I'm sort of, whatever, the leveling is happening. So in these times, because I've been through so many skin shedding moments, which is what I call these moments. It happens to every entrepreneur. It happens every so often as well. And the more you don't resist it, the better it is. So I'm aware of these moments. I reach out to the relevant people at the right time to kind of go, hey, I know what you do. Would you have a conversation with me? So one of my clients who is, has been a radio presenter for like 20 years. And apparently they do this with every radio person that goes into this before they go on air, is find out their characteristics and their personality so they can emphasize their personality. So I did this thing, and she sent back, amongst other things, like introvert, and she said something else, annoyingly perfect. I think facilitator was the one that stood out the most for me. And I was like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of myself as a facilitator. And next day, you send me a message. That's why I said I've got goosebumps.
Oh, I didn't ask you about that. I thought you just had goosebumps because, it's the final episode. Such a big deal. Like you're in the final interview. You made it. But that's why you got goosebumps. I was like giving myself way too much credit. But it's funny because I was also, we were talking about this before we hit record. I know Dave, our friend Dave Jackson's like, never mention that on a live podcast. But we're talking about when you're trying to solve something and you really try to force it, but sometimes you just got to wait for things to land. And so for my final interview, I was for weeks thinking who would be the perfect guest, and I'm looking at my bookshelf. And then I think I was out walking one day and then your name just entered my head, and that's when I text you. So it is interesting, that timing. But it's also funny, your friend, because I see that in you a lot, facilitation. I mean, not only recently with your Clubhouse moderation and how good you are at that, but your ability to connect people is like the number one attribute that I see in you. And that is what facilitation is all about, working with groups and things like that. Now, Ronsley, we got acquainted because of a podcasting conference, and you have this incredible ability to bring amazing people together. You brought my favourite podcasters to our little hometown of Brisbane, Australia. What do you think it is about your ability to connect with people? They're so attracted, they'll fly around the world to speak at one of your events. Like, how does that happen?
I can tell you that there were lots of people that have been wanting to find that out, and I don't have a really good answer, to be honest, because I don't know, to the point that the one that you were at, where Pat Flynn was at, and I remember this very clearly because he really schooled me, because I was interviewing him at the house when we went for the retreat, and I asked him a question along the lines of, why would you come here? Because I genuinely wouldn't know, like exactly, like everyone asked me this question, why would they do? I don't know. I'm asking them. And he was like, do you think you don't bring me value? And he got offended. He was like, do you think that, and he was like, what do you really think is happening that you don't think that I would come here if there was no value for me? He didn't answer the question, but he just properly coached me, and that something hit me that wasn't intellectual when he said those things. So to answer your question, I don't know why. I have no idea. I'm just grateful that it happens.
Yeah, it happens a lot. I mean, there's some footage of you at was it VaynerMedia in New York? You're hanging out with Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
You must just have these pinch me moments where you think, how did this...
Yeah, and also I see so many people, because I don't really click pictures with them. But then a few months ago, I was all over the news here in Brisbane because a picture of me with Zac Efron got leaked, and it was everywhere on 7 News.
That.
Yeah. And it wasn't supposed to happen because the picture I clicked, I gave to the people in the room, and it was very clear it was supposed to be amongst us. And one of them sort of put it on their Instagram, and it went crazy. And it was just the situation. But I don't really see myself, I just think of them as normal people, really. And I think I absolutely don't realize. I was talking to a friend of mine, Lawrence Tham, yesterday, and I was saying, someone asked me to run these events for this guy called Willie Woo, and he's like, Willie Woo, dude, you know who Willie Woo is? I'm like, I don't know. He's like just some big Bitcoin guy. I don't know when these things happen. It just seems like a great thing afterwards. So it seems like a nice thing to say a story about, but at the time, I'm just having a conversation with a normal person, really. I think,
that's probably it, though. You don't actually put people on pedestals, and you treat everyone equally.
I do put people on pedestals, unfortunately, especially when I look up to someone, and I find my biggest disappointments are like coaches that I put up on pedestals, for example, because I'm so value focused that if the values are not aligned, suddenly I realize something new, and I'm like, oh shit, I didn't know this about this person. But one of the things that my wife, Rochelle, like we're having this conversation about, if one of us became ruler of the world, what would we enact first, or what policy we would pursue first? I still don't remember what her thing was, but what she surprised me about was, she's like, mine would be equality. And I was like, what do you mean? And she gave me all these reasons of how I hate inequality. And I never realized that about myself. And it's like, it's just like evident everywhere. It's like unfairness for whatever reason. I find a way to like balance the scales, or like equity, not necessarily equality. It's more equity. So yeah, that was an interesting insight. So I think I get more insights of when other people sort of the mirror.
Putting that mirror up on and providing commentary back to you. It's what great coaches do. And I want to go back to that point that Pat actually raised, and where you thought, I can't intellectualize this. So with this podcast, First Time Facilitator, what I've been trying to do is re-engineer what makes a great workshop experience. And so you could go back to the way that you plan it, your agenda, what you wear, how much you sleep, right? So you can engineer that. But sometimes it's none of that. It is purely the energy of what is contained in that workshop at that moment in time, at that location. That's probably what I get scared of the most, is that I can do all this preparation and be so aligned with what needs to happen. And then in the moment, things change and I need to adapt to that. How do you see like energy and just the way that you show up helping you out, or in what you do in your business, or even just as a person?
Well, becoming an entrepreneur, especially becoming a podcaster, after a while, you got to be very careful as to who you hang out with and how that affects your energy, because it is probably the biggest suck. It is by far. And if you're not careful of childhood wounds, as to like, if, for example, for me, I did all these things, but I didn't know who I was trying to like, I didn't know why I kept doing all these. Like, I've got 7 careers in 40 years. It's crazy, right? And I didn't know why I kept doing it, who I was trying to like please, and why that kept happening. And then when I started to like look at, oh, I'm trying to please everyone, and I want everyone to like me, and there was all these elements that I was not allowing myself to be me. Just having that realization over time really helps with energy, because then you can show up for what you're meant to do. Otherwise, you're worrying about all these other things that are not valuable at all. But it's conditioned into us, right? It's conditioned to worry about, hey, do you show up in a Merc when everyone else shows up in a Tesla? Whatever their story is, right? And I think that's used to be the thing that used to surprise me the most, is because I used to be at these events that 7 people showed up in their own private jets. And I would be like I would be on the phone with Rochelle going, do I really even belong here? Right? Because that's when the belonging thing happens. Like, you're like, have I pulled a wool over everyone's eyes here that they think that I'm in this category? And it's a really fascinating thing, is that people don't care about what I do. They don't care about my accomplishments. They don't care about my business. They don't care about any of that. They just care about me and the value that I bring from being in the room. And I realized that more and more today than I've ever have, which allows me to be me and for whatever reason compounds the effect.
Well, you're very lucky. Well, not lucky, but like, because a lot of people sort of shy away from being themselves because they feel that they will get rejected, right? Like it's like that fear of stepping into your true self because you don't trust that people will like you for who you are. And I can absolutely understand that, being in that environment where people are rocking up in their private jets and going, what am I even doing here?
No, it's extremely confronting. Like literally the last time this happened, Rochelle and I were the last time it happened, because everything sort of shut after that. We were in Los Cabos, and luxury beyond I've ever experienced. And I walked into the room, I turned to Rochelle and said, let us never forget where we've come from. It was so wild, right? That you don't know how to react. You're like, am I here? Do I deserve it? And all that kind of stuff. And then Rochelle, in that, it's really insightful, because at that event, 3 days in this, on the beach, in the most luxurious place probably on the planet. And we found out that The Rock and Kevin Hart were there the next week after we checked out.
Damn it, the next week.
But she says, Ronsley, this whole thing is yours. It's your thing. I want to go and serve people. I'm a nurse. And that's how she went back to nursing from that. Like so we were traveling the world doing all this cool stuff. So it's really these things, you got to see where they land with you and what is rubbing up and why is the discomfort, or where the emotional baggage is coming from.
Yes. And I think a lot of the people that I work with or have heard from in the podcast, like it keeps coming up in our Facebook group about, should I get this certification? And it's constantly seeking out to get validated so that you can do this. Like, it's like you have to get the certificate to get permission to walk into a CEO's office and talk about things. Let's talk about the discomfort. And you said, you're like a snake shedding your skin, and it happens every so often. That's what I'm in right now, right? So this podcast, it's scary to disassociate. I've had so much. You've seen the journey, like, of being able to quit my job and just travel around the world because of this show that started because of you. I'll provide that story before this interview starts. But how do you navigate that? Because it's so much easier to hang on to that certainty of, this has been successful, why don't I continue doing this thing? But you got that tug of that new thing and that new direction, but you have no idea whether it's going to land or not. What gives you the confidence to go into change careers all those times that you've done that?
I don't see them as risks. It's really fascinating.
Wow.
And everyone thinks that I'm being risky, but I have multiple backup plans. Actually, in fact, that's another thing that Rochelle says is like, actually, that's the reason I keep using Batman a lot. She's like, you're like Batman. Your backup plans have backup plans. I was like, oh, I'm going to use that.
There's so many good episode titles already. Great.
So what might seem like a risk isn't really, because I'm kind of going, if that doesn't work out, I have these other things that... So it's like I compare myself to... People might think I'm jumping off a cliff, but I have multiple safeties in place. And there's a good possibility that I could hit the floor, but I might just be injured or break a leg or something like that. It does seem like I go out and do something that is really what seems like outside the box, but I don't see it that way at all.
Well, can you just, I know you, so I know the transition. So you were like a software engineer. Talk us through some of those, just to give an example for our listeners.
Yeah. So in terms of careers, software engineer and then software quality manager. So I took two companies to an ISO 9001 accreditation because they had to be sold. And for a software company, quality was my thesis, my software quality thesis, which I got to implement, which is insane. So software engineer, software quality manager, financial advisor, restaurateur, chef, and now podcaster, author, marketer, whatever you want to call. I don't even know what I do anymore. It's like, but I didn't even realize that I did all these things until my 40th birthday. I made this big chart of all the things I had done in my 40 years to give my parents and say, 40 years I've been alive, these are the things I've done. And on that list was all these things. And I was like, oh, I've done a lot. Best man for 7 weddings. You never realize that. Anyway, I'm just blessed. I think I'm just extremely blessed. I feel, Rochelle says it all the time, I'm lucky. There are people that give me food, their last meal. They are usually like in weirdest places, like in New Zealand, in like sometimes at the traffic lights, people will say, hey, this is my last, would you like it? And I'm like, at the markets, it's the weirdest thing. Leanne, if I could explain it, it is. I don't know. There's no explanation.
Yeah, well, something I mentioned a lot on the podcast as well is like I love Jim Collins, and he talks about that phrase just on the concept of luck, return on luck. And that's, if I was to throw the mirror up against you, Ronsley, I would say you do have return on luck. But you've spun me out with introducing, you're like, no, it's not return on luck, it's something else.
Yeah, I think it's return on reps. I think luck is a return on reps. And I am very conscious about my reps, actually. And I never realized that how conscious I'm about my reps. For example, I'm on day 51 of 75 hard right now. This is my second 75 hard. But I've been abstaining for like 25 years. I used to pick Lent, not because you should pick its time. So I used to abstain from alcohol, or I used to smoke at one time. And it was a really interesting thing that I used to do. I used to pay attention to these things. And like, for example, now I can use my keyboard with both hands because I started by brushing my teeth with my left hand. And these are small reps that I do every day that compound. I don't even realize it's a thing. Cold showers, maybe for the last 3 years, easily.
In winter?
Any place on the planet, Canada, doesn't matter where I am, cold showers at least once a day. So it's fascinating how I've developed these reps that somehow seem to return on luck. Yeah.
And you said you're very wise in the reps that you choose. And I think that's often a fear. People that are in their facilitation careers, or, we're always told to niche down on a topic or choose something. And then when you choose that thing, you're like, is this the right rep that I should I continue doing the reps in this field, or, how do I shift? So how are you making that conscious choice? And I think what you're saying, return on reps, it kind of is linked into everything: productivity, focus, time management, like getting efficiencies. We can't do all the reps for every piece of machinery. How do you choose the right reps? How are you conscious of that?
Well, if someone says that, hey, Ronsley, can you just make more time in the day? I can tell that that person is doing things that they're not meant to be doing because they have no focus and they're just spinning a whole bunch of plates. And they're busy and they kind of like, I just wish I had more time to do more stuff. And that never works out because there is no more time to do more stuff. So while reps are important, focus is probably the most important thing, like to figure out what you want to focus on to then figure out what reps you want to do. So figure out your focus and then see who else has done it before and how they've done it and start there. And then you can tweak to your liking once you have enough reps to make an educated decision. Until that point, you can't make any educated decisions. And that's what happens in business today.
Exactly what happens. Yeah.
People are making brands on Canva and think that they are this great branding expert, right? But it just looks like they found the thesaurus and they just changed all the words. That's what it reads like to a brand expert when you see someone that does it in this haphazard, but they don't see it because they don't know they've done it that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely know what you mean. I'm sort of laughing here and giggling along. We're recording this in Ronsley's studio. It's such a beautiful day in Brisbane. It's a little bit humid, so I think a cold shower probably is a good. I'll probably get one under my belt today. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Now, on the topic of facilitation and moderation. So when Clubhouse exploded onto the scene, like over Christmas, it was like last year, you just built a massive profile. You've got Paris Hilton following you now on there. Which, again, it's back to your return on reps. But what did you find? When I was jumping into some of your Clubhouse streams, you're very good at containing conversations, about being the equality piece shone through for me. You're giving all of us just opportunities to jump in and be a co-host with you. What did you find from that experience where you can't see people, you're opening this room, you're having these deep conversations? Like, how did you moderate that?
I think video distracts. I think audio is the most intimate piece of content. Like, I think it's the most connected because when someone's got you plugged in their ears, you might say something that you think is the right spiel to make, but someone without distraction, someone will pick up the tonality of whether this is true or not. So I believe live audio is going to strip out the poses from the real people, right? And my main reason thank you for reminding me, because I was very active on making sure that the it was represented, right?
Yeah.
That it was equal, because I would be invited, I would see rooms that were all white men. And these white men were never in a position that they got challenged, that they didn't know how to even converse properly with a woman that came up to speak. And I'm like, whoa, it's annoying, because you don't realize. And then I started to realize that this must be happening all the time. And then I started to ask these questions of even Rochelle, my wife, and she's like, yeah, happens all the time. I'm like, and see, in my head, I think the world is equal. And it annoys the shit out of me that it's not, right? So it's so confronting, live audio, that you can't hide.
Yes.
You cannot hide there.
That's what I loved about it, actually, because I'd be in these rooms where people were experts and someone would come up and ask a question, and I'd often hear people try and like mumble, put together an answer, even if they didn't know the answer. And that was it just came across so clearly. It's like, you could just say, oh, look, I don't know. And that's okay. But to even like create something and make it up, that just sounded so weak. It was like, they were caught out. Not to catch people out, but yeah. And it's interesting what you say about the experience. But what I found hard about Clubhouse is, I mean, it's different to Zoom, where I'm spending a lot of my time now, is I can see when someone's leaning forward, where their eyes light up, and I'm like, okay, they want to add something. Did you get a sense for that in Clubhouse?
Well, the best thing about Clubhouse is it's like having a talking stick, right? Only one person can talk at one time. So when someone is talking and someone else is talking, no one can hear anything really. So I feel that is the best thing about Clubhouse, is that because every other social media, you can just like, blah, right? There's no thinking involved. You can just say, without even an informed decision, without you being qualified to speak. It's like the white people coming to India and saying, oh, we know how you're supposed to, it's like, no concept, no perspective. But on Clubhouse, you got to listen for way longer than you get a chance to speak. And that's why I love Clubhouse, is because you get found out. And also, if you decide to open a room and be the expert, you're not opening up conversations, right? You're not you think that you know everything. And that's a very different to what I do, where I kind of go, this is not a stage, this is a campfire. This is not the mic, this is a talking stick. So I kind of like try to curate it in a way of how I want it to. And I imagine all of us sitting around a campfire having a conversation. That's how I kind of try to do it.
Yeah, I like what you said about the talking stick versus the microphone. And also the word expert. It's an interesting word, and sometimes I feel very uncomfortable with it and call myself an explorer instead, just so that you kind of lowering your status. But yeah, it gets brandied around a lot.
Yeah, it's not necessarily lowering the status. It's not one or the other, because I feel like marketing is very different today than what it was when marketing books were written, right? So when you write a book and you put out a book and you don't highlight yourself as an expert, it's very different to you turning up as an explorer and people tuning into who you are, what you do, and you reminding them every now and then that you are the expert explorer, right? They term you as the expert, but you're the explorer. So this is the key for me to realize that I will amplify clients. Don't start a podcast to teach, they start a podcast to learn.
Yes. Well, that's why I started this podcast. That was the advice that you gave me, right? So Ronsley said, he goes, if you want to do a podcast, start about something you want to learn more about. And that was it for me.
Because then you don't have to show up as the expert and try to like make sure that no one sees your vulnerabilities and any of that stuff. You just show up as, I'm here to learn. Please expose my vulnerabilities.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where I've been absolutely challenged over the last 3 years, is having different perspectives and going, where do I sit with that? Like, I hear what you're saying, but does that like resonate with me? And a lot of the tips that I give people that listen to the show is, listen to this podcast, but don't adopt everything. Like, listen to what resonates with you the most.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
You've got a podcast called Why You Should Start a Podcast.
Should I start a podcast? Yeah.
Should I start a podcast? Sorry, Ronsley. Yeah, very meta. I did a podcast episode on this show about, I think every company should have like an internal podcast, like for communication and for creating culture as well. Now, we recently just talked about some people like shouldn't share their voices. We kind of meant that in jest. But there does seem to be this resistance to actually sharing your voice and getting that confidence in order to do that. sort of tips would you have for someone that wants to start speaking up, running workshops, but just needs that sort of push?
Well, I think first having the conversations amongst close people is really important, like opening up the conversation and saying, this is how I feel about this subject, because a lot of the times our thoughts just require an audience. And usually if we can just give our thoughts an audience, whether it is to ourselves or with someone else, sometimes us just saying it out loud helps massively. Check out my TEDx talk. It's all about that. But really, that is the crux of everything, is just being able to listen. And a lot of people think I love meditation or that kind of stuff because I'm trying to quiet my mind. I'm trying to listen to my mind. I'm paying attention to what it's saying, because I can run away from everyone but my forever roommate, which is like always saying something. And if I don't figure out why it's saying that and it's why it's doing that on repeat, then I'm not listening. And because I'm listening to that, I'm becoming a better listener in general.
Mind blown. That sentence, our thoughts require an audience. That's really struck me just right there. And by the way, if you think Ronsley's putting this on for the podcast, like these are just normal conversations. Like if we were just having a coffee, we'd be going like, this is how deep you go. So
these are not mine, by the way. This is not mine. These I feel like I'm listening to them for the first time sometimes, and not this particular line because I use it in the TEDx talk, but like the one return on reps that I said earlier. I'm surprised that y'all have the reaction that you have, really. Yeah. So it's not mine. I'm kind of going, oh, that's interesting that it came out. It's not something I thought of before. It's not been brewing. It's come from somewhere. So
it did come from somewhere, because like you literally blurted it right back at me. And then it really struck me, because return on luck I like, but it was more about, okay, you can position yourself in a way, but it isn't return on luck, because what is it? The harder you work, the luckier you get. But it's also putting it into the right reps as well. So I'm glad that we spoke about that. So let's talk about your podcasting conference. It was the best thing ever. You flew in all these people from around the world. Like, it made me start a podcast and connected me with just amazing people. What are your plans for podcasting and conferences in the future?
Yeah, I've decided to, well, it's only been a recent decision because it's been, so I lost my grandmother to COVID in May. And it's really fascinating when you have a death in the family, because it makes you focus on the right things, I think, because it all happened really spontaneously. But I realized that I wanted to focus on people that had started a podcast for their business and they wanted to grow their business using that podcast. I didn't want to focus on someone who wanted to start a podcast. I didn't want to focus on someone who wanted to start a business. No, it was, now I'm so clear. I want to help the business owner that has started a podcast and wants to grow that business with their podcast. And that clarity has helped me massively. So We Are Podcast, it has always been about that, but I've not been able to articulate it in that manner.
That's interesting. Like, all the conferences and all the years of doing it, and it's only since you've had to draw that into focus.
Yeah. So that's what We Are Podcast is known for now. We've got a membership at the back end of that where we coach business owners and to grow their business using their podcast. So We Are Podcast is now the conference for business owners to grow their business using a podcast. It seems so like, oh, how did you not know that before?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, it seems so obvious. It's only taken like 4 years.
No, but, so 2014. So yeah, so
the first podcasting conference in the Southern Hemisphere. So you've been doing this for some time, and without that clarity.
Yeah.
Just a question on that. We were talking about books again before hitting record, and you said, look, you got to wait for the calling. You can't force this upon you. You gave me the example of 2 books. Can you share that? And like, what is it? Like, is it just time and patience that will get you to find the answer? Like, is there anything that you can do and put into your control to make it happen?
No, I think realizing that we're not in control is probably I think that's the biggest lie sold to us, is that we are in control. That is the biggest lie sold to humanity in general, is that we are in control. We're not. You could die right now. I could die right now. This could be my last breath. It could be. Yeah, I'm not in control of shit. I could exercise all the time. I could be the healthiest. I could get everything right. I could get hit by a bus. You're not in control at all. You could have all that sorted. You could have your routine sorted. You could be absolutely perfect with everything, and something will happen that will totally off balance if you don't know how to respond. So It's not about control. It's about being able to live. That is life, is being able to respond to life. And I think that has allowed me to be freer. That has allowed me to kind of go, I don't have to get it right. What is getting it right? In retrospect, I can look back and make everything right. It could be a really good story. It's always a great story, irrespective of how. So I think it's just about reps, for sure, persistence with the reps. That's why I love a podcast, is because whether you want it or not, it's hitting all these reps that you're not even realizing you're doing.
Oh, for sure. Just the ability of podcasting, just getting on a microphone and talking to people, right? As a result, even if no one listened to the show in 200 episodes, it's the connections, the ability to become a better listener, to be responsive. I think that's the perfect sort of quote. You've got so many great one-liners in this, by the way. We have to get the transcript and just get all these quotes out. There's a million episode titles in this one episode. It's not about what happens, it's what you do next. It's your responsiveness, and understanding that there is no such thing as control is probably the most refreshing thing to know as a facilitator with a group setting.
Yeah, you can be prepared.
And life in general.
But you can't be in control. And that's the difference, right? People can think that if you're prepared, you're in control. It's not the case. It's and that's, I think people, a lot of the times, actually, I get this a lot. We should just do it like Ronsley. He just wings it. And it doesn't, I never wing it. I am so prepared, but it looks like I'm winging it. It absolutely, every time they're like, how did you do that? Actually, this happened at KPI. I was asked to tell my story and everything at in this 300, 400 people or whatever at South Bank. And I think I was not the opening, after the opening, the second person. And so at lunch, all these speakers were gathered together, and one of them goes, yeah, we should just do it like Ronsley. He just winged it. I'm like, interesting you think that.
You weren't offended by it? Were you offended by it?
Okay. I thought it is so fascinating that I am, it seems like that I came across as it was so spontaneous, but I knew exactly how I was layering what I was going to say, because I wanted to do three things. I remember this very clearly. I wanted them to laugh with me, I wanted them to cry with me, and then I wanted them to think with me. And I wanted that to do that in under 10 minutes, because that's all my time slot was. So I was very careful as to what I was saying. But then this person, because she was like, I had to remember my whole thing, is what she said. I remember my whole thing, and it came across all prepared. But if you do it like Ronsley and he just wings it, it comes across more authentic, is what she said, right? Sorry, she didn't. So I should put that in context. And I was like, oh, that's fascinating. I love that you think that I winged it. But there was a very good intent about each one of those lines that I uttered out. Yeah.
So preparation does not
at
equal
all.
Control.
In fact, it is the reps that allow you to be more prepared. Never in control. And you got to respond, right? When you think about the players on the field, they do so much of reps, training. But it's never the same situation. That they have to respond. And if they think, oh, this situation shouldn't happen to me, it's gone. It's over.
It's gone.
There's no chance for that. That's how life should be like.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I love it. Oh my gosh, so much fuel here. This is amazing. And for those that are just finding the show, listen to the back catalogue, but this is a perfect place to start in terms of really defining what that is. And because this whole podcast has really been about preparation. But just now that it's dawned on me, 200 episodes on preparing. But we also have to wake up and recognise it's the responsiveness part that will get us through life. And Ronsley, there's so much I could say about you, and I will absolutely when I do your introduction, but is there anything else you'd like to share with listeners?
Yeah, I think the best part about facilitation is not having the outcome already in your head. Your job is not that. Your job is to facilitate, and if you can facilitate, stand back and watch what your facilitation creates, that I think would create better facilitators.
That's my favorite part. I think Michael Bungay Stanier, who I love, he talks about being more lazy. And so, like, there's nothing better than, the second half of a day where the group is just taking over. You can leave the room for 5 minutes and it explodes, right?
Tap into the collective wisdom of the room.
Yeah. That's awesome. Ronsley, if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Luckily, I have this unique name, so just Google Ronsley, and you should find all this stuff.
You should find everything, including the photo with Zac Efron. Put that in the show notes. I didn't hear that story. I have to Google it after. Ronsley, you're so awesome. Thank you for being. This has been absolutely a full circle moment.
What a
having
pleasure.
You here.
Thank you for thinking of me, Leanne. This is so cool. Thank you.
Thank you.